in Kettley, bro.
Testing.
Play Life, bro. It's Play Life, bro. Instagram.
It's trying to figure out the headphones, bro. Okay, you can start again.
Play Life, bro. That's the Instagram.
Play Life, bro.
How did that come about?
Sure, bro. So there was a time, I can't remember when it was. I was kind of going through, call it like an early 20s, like midlife crisis. And I was just in the space where I was like really working on myself, really thinking a lot about like who I was, where I'm going, and kind of like the message I wanted to put out. And yeah, bro, just the one day I was sitting there like thinking, and like I was just like, I think I just want to play life, bro. And so I put the name there, and it was more of like a, you know, just to have fun, like you just messing around with your Instagram name. And like the longer that it's like stayed a thing, the more people have like called me Play Life, bro. And it's like built this like sort of energy behind it, to the point now where as I'm thinking about like life purpose and like where I'm going, I'm actually like, I could keep this. And it's like crazy how it's become like something I might actually like use as like a sort of, not a movement, but like that
we
name
can create a brand around it somehow.
100% sure. So what started as a joke, I might actually just keep, but it kind of represents, it's definitely like a good, it's a good indicator of the attitude that I'm trying to have towards life, you know?
Yeah, I think it is a very good attitude to have, because, and I think it's maybe everyone goes through that kind of like existential crisis, you know, after their 20s, when they start
100%.
to realize like, oh, when you get this like form of consciousness where you're like, oh wait, I actually don't need to do things on autopilot. Because I mean, most of our lives leading up in school, I mean, thinking back now, I think like, was I even fully aware of what I was doing? Was it just like this autopilot of, oh, well, I go to school, I think what they tell me to think, I do what they tell me to do, I think these are the expectations of me, so let me do them. And life is more play than what we, you know, deemed, at least for this first 20 years.
No, it's true, bro. And I think like the play that you're referring to is also like you have a lot more control over the creative way that you can design your own life that I don't think we were taught in school. I think a lot of school, like you say, was very, there's like these 10 pieces and like this is the way you must think, and like these are the things that you do, and like nothing more. And I think that takes a lot of the play away from people's, like, the big thing for me is like I have creative control over the design of my life. That's like the biggest thing. And in a sense, that's like the way you get to sort of play, and like that'll be different for everybody, you know?
Yeah,
which is cool. I think that's like the best part of it as well.
And what's interesting is we both, and a lot of people, get to a point of, you know, that like being more aware of yourself, aware of your ability to shape your future. And, you know, I would say the schooling system was probably more conditioned to your type of brain at that point, at least. Because if we look at you and your marks, you know, you were a high achiever in terms of school. So, you know, the schooling system worked perfectly for you. However, it still didn't like make you self-aware. So yes, it was rewarding your brain and like the type of learning that was maybe conducive for you at that time. And maybe it wasn't rewarding me the same, but neither of us had that awakening almost of, you know, seeing like things can be so different if you just think a bit differently.
No, 100%. That's the thing. I think it rewards, if you have like X, Y, and Z, it rewards that.
Yeah.
But I think there's just a lot of pieces that are missing, that it takes like, you know, having to have an existential crisis in like the age of 20 to realize like there's like so much more that I'm not aware of. Like you say, self-aware, just not even knowing, like you might be achieving, but you don't really like know who you are, like why you're here, what you're doing. Your
thoughts and what you believe might just be what your parents' thoughts 100%. Were, or the teachers or whatever, the people around you.
100%. And even not only just like the beliefs you have are not your own, not having even developed beliefs about you and your life going forward. Because I think like, although it's useful, I think a lot of school fills your mind that it doesn't give you the space to actually develop your own vision, your own beliefs. Where am I going? What do I enjoy? But then, like you say, like a lot of that you do have already also isn't your own. So you kind of have to like break it down and then rebuild and keep what might be useful, what's not, discard what's not, you know?
What was that first, what's your first memory, you know, of the coming to the realization of, you know, play life, bro? Like what was, do you have like a distinct, maybe not like the exact day, but like a time period of where you were in your life?
So if I'm remembering correctly, I think I was in second year varsity. And to refer back to what you said now, that whole space of achieving was always the narrative, right? And then come second year varsity, I was studying maths at the time. And of course, it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. So that was the first point where I distinctly remember the time frame I started to deal with not being like good enough to achieve now. Like marks weren't happening like they used to happen. I wasn't in that space of achieving, and that kind of shook me quite a lot.
To put in perspective, how many distinctions did you get in matric?
Oh, I think it was like 7.
So
I think it was
the
like all of them.
Top like 1%. Yeah, exactly. I think there's 8 subjects, so maybe there was one that you didn't get. Or maybe there's 7 subjects. I actually can't even remember.
There was 7. I know applied maths was like an extra.
Okay.
But
so essentially you achieved in the top 10%, probably higher actually. Well, you were obviously in top 10.
I think I ended up 5th in my grade.
So 5 out of 130 kids-ish.
So like way at the top, used to just putting in like the bare minimum effort, achieving, that kind of became like, this is who I am. Like, cool, I achieve, life's good, this is how it goes. And then come that time in varsity, it was like I was more by myself. You know, university, there's less of a community, less of this big like system. It's just you and your small group of friends, your family. So life like quietens down. That's what happened. But then also suddenly the maths I was doing, all the effort in the world, and I was like, I don't know how to do this. And obviously that shook me because I was so used to just like, I can just get through, this is easy, life's good. So that started a bit of fear of like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, which then kind of led to, do I actually even enjoy this? So I started really like questioning, like kind of looking around saying, like, what am I actually doing? Like, wait, this is very difficult. Do I even enjoy this? Why am I doing it? And I had this like it was that time of life, must have been like a 2 or 3 week period. And you might understand when I say it's almost like I woke up, but not literally, just like I had this, like the curtains opened and I looked around and I'm like, I don't think anything I'm doing is like me. And I realized it's almost like I'd been asleep from like the whole of high school up to that second year point, just like blindly doing what I was doing. And this period almost like woke me up and I was like, wait, like almost like, where am I? What am I doing? And that started a lot of like existential thinking and actually starting to realize there's a lot of pieces that I haven't considered about, wait, like surely I would be doing something I enjoy. That's got to be like important, right? Started thinking a lot about that, started reading a lot of books. And then I think to answer your question, I started seeing the importance of living a life that's like aligned with you and not necessarily figuring that out immediately, but at least seeing the importance of like constructing your own life if you want to make your life useful and impactful in the world. And then I think out of that was born that attitude of like, play life, bro. Like I've got to play life, and to play life means to sit and take the time to figure out like what that means for me. And back to the whole school thing, like not what school says, not what parents say, not what university is saying, like playing life built almost like from the ground up. Like you almost discard everything and you go back to first principles and you derive your entire life from scratch. And to me, that was the essential, like, play life, bro. Because, I mean, you're playing at the end of the day. Like, that word is kind of like a blanket term for just taking life seriously, engaging with life, you know, and making it fun as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's taking it seriously in the term of am I being effective? Am I, doing something for the benefit of everyone? But also play in the not so serious sense that, someone's angry at you for something you actually didn't do. Whereas previously you would be overthinking, what can I do to make it right? Whereas I can't control that guy's being angry or not, or, the seriousness of, I lost a client, where it's like, what can I do? I'm going to beat myself up, in a month's time, this isn't going to even matter. So this isn't serious. So the seriousness of, am I having a positive impact on the world? And then also the more playful aspect of, this isn't the end of the world. Because I think as someone that wants to achieve highly, everything, you kind of take seriously. And then there's that kind of, you need to take a step back and just realize like, this actually isn't that serious. Like, yes, take things seriously, but this isn't the end of the world. Yeah. This isn't going to matter tomorrow, actually.
And it's crazy that you say it like that because, and you can actually tell me if you've had like a lot of people say this to you. I've had so many people say like, like that condescending sort of like, you take life too seriously. Like people kind of like, you take life too seriously, like kind of lighten up. And the distinction I've made to people and having to actually sit and think for myself is there's actually a very big difference between being serious and taking life seriously. Because like you say, taking life seriously just means to engage with life, to be present in your life, to take the time to develop the pieces that you want to develop, to take the time to build the things you want to build. So it's like you take life super seriously and paradoxically you almost become less serious because you're starting to build things, you're starting to, remove trauma, you're starting to fix your mindset, and those additions give you that sort of emotional mastery to now actually see that life's not that serious, things are not as scary. So that's like a big thing I've had to deal with, is to make that distinction of like being serious is completely separate. If anything, I found that people who don't take life seriously and kind of life's this, you just take it for granted, because you kind of haphazardly just, wasting the days away, a lot more problems come in.
Yeah.
And a lot more problems create a very serious person. So it's like ironic, if you don't take life seriously, you probably will become more serious and vice versa, which is
it's kind of like the same thing of, if you want a hard life, take the easy route. If you want an easy life, take the difficult route.
100%.
And, my mom, and she's actually the person that I can have the most like philosophical conversations with in my life currently, where she said to me, Jesse, do you think and analyze every decision that you make? Intrinsically, your motivations, all of that. And I said, to a large degree, I do. I do often, if I can't really think of an example, but I'll try analyze. I'll be like, well, why did I not say, yes, I will go out for coffee with that girl? What were my intentions there? What was this? What was that? And I don't think it's, like paralysis by analysis. Like, it's not like I'm never doing anything because I'm analyzing everything, but it's kind of after the analysis after the fact. And that analysis after the fact then helps you the next time, and it makes you make decisions that are more maybe aligned with the person you want to be. So let's say, okay, Jesse, you didn't go have that drink with that girl. Why? Okay, well, maybe it was because I'm scared of commitment because I feel like I've failed in past relationships. So then the next time maybe that circumstance arises where I have an opportunity to go on a date or whatever, I can initially, even before the hand, think about, okay, well, this is why maybe you might be hesitant, analyze that properly, then you can make a more informed decision instead of just you saying like, no, okay, yes. And it just, as you say, coasting. I mean, I remember I was buying dog food, and she definitely won't see this video. So this girl, I doubt she watches this podcast, but even if she does, it made me think. And
put your truth out there.
Yeah. So she said to me, Jesse, are you okay? And I was like, yo, what? She said, you've been making really like deep, intrinsically analytical videos recently on Instagram. What's wrong? And I was like, obviously I didn't say this, but I was thinking like, I'm actually in the healthiest space of my life I've ever been. And just because I'm putting out, thought-provoking, or at least questions that I'm asking myself, or maybe people need to be asking themselves. Just because I'm putting that out there on Instagram, it doesn't mean that I'm unhappy because I'm asking these, these questions. And then her response was the most interesting thing. Was she said, "You really like to think about a lot of things. I like for life just to happen." And I was just like, that's so sad. For life to just happen. Who wants to live in a life where they do things and they don't really understand why they're doing things? Like,
no, 100%. Firstly, I must say, I want to shout out your shorts, like those captioned, like sort of thought-provoking videos have been super cool.
Thank you.
But yeah, I definitely agree. I think a lot of people, life's just this, it's almost like a movie that you take what you get. Life just happens. And I agree, it's quite sad. And I've seen a lot of this in myself looking back, where I was just kind of like whatever happens, just go with the flow. And what I figured out since is I think both of those pieces exist, where you bring your entire self to your life, and you put in the effort and you take time, like you say, to think and analyze. And because life's a very complex thing at the end of the day. I think to some degree you need a level of thought and analysis and contemplation. And, when you look back after the fact and you kind of figure out things, I think it's so complex that it needs that effort and engagement. But then I think if you're bringing that 100% to your life, you can then also bring in the attitude of like, but also whatever happens. And a lot of life is outside of my control. And so I'm going to give everything I've got, but then the parts of it I can't control, then you can kind of say like, whatever happens. But I think a lot of people are just saying the whatever happens, like I can't do much. Or it's even just like not seeing the importance of engaging with life. So you kind of just sit back, whatever happens, and then complain about the problems.
I think that self-analysis helps you cope with the randomness of life, because 100%. 99% of everything that happens in our lives is out of our control. 100%. So when those things that are out of your control happen, you're able to cope and deal with it a little bit better. I know before I even started, just trying to internalize things would happen and they would affect me, and it will affect me for weeks. It'll affect my sleep. It'll affect relationships, so many different things. And it's not like now that you are internalizing and thinking and trying to rationalize that those things don't happen. They still happen. And, and actually maybe they happen actually more because you're more aware of what you can't control. So they 100%. Seem to be happening more, but your manageability of being able to cope is far better.
So true, bro. I think the best strategic move anyone can make in life is to look at life exactly what you've said, and you kind of realize I can't control anything outside of me at the end of the day. Like I can't control the movements of people and life and politics and business and clients and everything. So why don't I put everything I have into changing the inside, which has the ability to handle that outside?
Yeah, and positively affect the outside.
100%, and even have some sort of effect to reduce or just manage those external events. Because at the end of the day, I feel like that's what life is it's just you're just building this character that takes the life that you can't control and the massive movement that is like existence, and learning to like handle it and use it and adapt and kind of take the momentum it gives you and go off in directions you want to go. And I think that's a massive strategic move anyone can make, is to kind of tone down the amount of external effort you're putting in and willpower that you're trying to put in to control this person or make sure that doesn't happen, or putting in all this effort. Rather save half of that and focus on the thing that receives all of that, and you'll solve half your problems.
And then also the more self-work you do, you can understand other people a lot better. So in trying to control someone, actively trying to control them, you realize you can't. Where if you just take a step back, try control your own thoughts, your own rational mind, you then get a better understanding of other people, and then you can not control them, but you can understand their actions, and you can maybe predict a bit better, and you can get more insight into the human condition to help you in what you were trying to do previously.
100%. Do you feel like you could actually, if someone's doing something that's upsetting you and you spend weeks trying to change that person, do you get the vibe that you've no longer really, you no longer have like relationship with that person, because all your thoughts and ideas of the person you're trying to create them to be or change them into are kind of blocking your way? Whereas, like you say, if you focus on the inside and you focus on your ability to accept the way they are and manage sort of your own internal irritation that comes up, you then end up learning a lot more about them, because you're actually seeing them like pure as they are, because you're managing your own filters, not like the idea that you have of them and like who they're supposed to be. So like you said, I think that's so true. You end up learning so much more about people because you're actually like seeing them as they are, and you're just focusing on yourself and not like trying to change them and put ideas of who they should be into your head.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you look at in a small isolated instance, which can be broadly related to that exactly, is when you're having let's say you're having an argument with someone, or you're just talking to someone, you're not even actually thinking about what they're saying. You're thinking about what you're going to say next
100%.
to, win the argument or whatever. So you're not even
100%.
thinking about them. You're just thinking and planning for yourself on how to get the upper hand on them. And instead, just actually listen. And then if they do say something, and that's the biggest thing I think also with relationships where it could help, is they say something where previously it might like spark something that annoys you, and then you go back at them. Whereas now it's, why did that upset me? Why did that annoy me?
Bro.
What frustrated me about that? What that about me? So that's, and I've yet to be in a relationship where I've, gone through this full journey so far that I've gone through, and definitely it's going to continue, and I think it continues all through life.
Because it's so difficult to do that when it's easy to like think of, but when you're the person being triggered, that's when it's like the rubber meets the road, and you actually have to now employ the lesson that you've been reading about and actually like put your, it's so much harder to do it when it's like you.
Yeah. And
to
that's
ask those questions.
Yeah, and that's this like you will read about, how to deal with like death in your family. And then you'll like think about it, and you'll be like, okay, well, I need to realize, like, let's say a parent had to die. I need to realize like death is a part of life. These things happen. It's out of my control. Don't regret things because it can't be changed. But then you actually think about like, how would I actually act in that
100%.
situation? And it's a lot more difficult to actually implement. And death being way more difficult to, try and manage as opposed to an argument. Like an argument, and I still fall short often, of, okay, well, this is what I read today. I'm going to try implement these thought processes in my daily life, and then you catch yourself. And I think that's also what Play Life Bro can be, is, constantly trying to improve, being like, oh, wait, I didn't actually do that very well. Okay, cool, let's work on that. And you're constantly playing to like level up a little bit.
100%. It's just like you've got a vision and you just keep learning and keep adjusting, keep changing, keep failing in line to get to that vision. That's like, and then that becomes like your game. And then your game will be different from my game. But I wanted to touch on, I posted a video the other day about learning equals behavior change.
Yes.
And I think I've fallen for this for years. I made this mistake where you're reading, you're learning. You can even chat to people and you understand the things you're speaking of theoretically. But I think a lot of us make the mistake of thinking we've learned something, giving all the relationship advice to your friend, and then you get triggered and you don't actually do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's like, for anyone listening who like reads books, that's like a big 2-step process. Is you have to understand something. You have to read, you have to understand all the pieces and the parts. But it's like when you're in the situation and your anger comes up, how you handle that actual anger is the most direct reflection of how well you've learned this thing. Not like how much theory you know, how much you actually embody that theory, which is so much harder. Like it's like the difference between intellectual understanding and call it like experiential understanding.
Well, I mean, Marcus Aurelius' quote of, don't talk about what a good man should be, just be one.
100%.
You know, like
100%.
it's cool. I mean, it does help talking about philosophies, and it does help, you know, like us sitting here talking about it, because you might make me think differently, and like that kind of stuff. It does help.
100%.
But the cliche term of, you know, actions speak louder than words is, you know, you can say you've got these beliefs or you've got this philosophy, but then when it comes down to it, you don't, because you fail to act on them.
100%.
Whereas the action part is the most difficult part. It's easy to read, and some people can't even do that.
100%. I think like both pieces are necessary. Like a silly example would be, you know, the word mango and then actually eating a mango. It's way more like actually eating the mango, which is the action, is 100% way more important. But you also needed to know about the word mango to even look for a mango in the first place. So the theory kind of gets you into the room, and then you leave it at the door. And then that's like where the real work starts, is actually doing it where it's real.
Is there a particular philosophy or school of thought or whatever that you mainly, you know, gravitate to?
To be honest, no. I've read like a little bit about Stoicism. Like I started, but I've put it aside, like the deeper, like Taoism. That's like very spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
But I base a lot of my learnings and readings on less on like philosophies and more on like topics. And then whatever philosophy, like Stoicism, or I can't even think of any now, whichever ones pop up into those.
Yeah.
I'm pretty open to, I feel like a lot of different philosophies like that, there's an element of truth in all of them. So I've always found it to be quite beneficial to open your mind and kind of figure out your own lessons from all of them. I think some are more effective for other people as well. You know,
Yeah,
definitely.
and the best explanation of Stoicism I heard was Tim Ferriss actually said it's basically a philosophy to help and manage a highly stressful life. And, you know, there's certain aspects of Stoicism, there's certain, like, and that's just the thing is, you know, Marcus was still slightly different to Seneca, and, you know, within Stoicism, they were still slightly different, and they still had slightly different schools of thought where, you know, some of them would be like, no, you can't allow yourself the pleasure of nice food. And I'm just like, well, what kind of a life is there if you can't at times enjoy food? If you can't, you know, enjoy the luxury of a warm bed, you have to subjugate yourself to the tiles in winter. Like some of these things are just like, that's a bit excessive.
Some of them are hectic.
So it's more like a modern Stoicism. But I mean, the only reason, like maybe like Buddhism, even though it's more of a religion, like certain things of like what I personally don't agree with, or at least maybe not don't agree with, but for myself, is like the detachment from the world and, you know, nothing of this world, like possessions and stuff being not all possessions are a problem. It's not a problem to like nice things, but when those nice things, and that's the biggest thing about because I wouldn't say I was.
So what do you define as detachment? When you say that, like, what do you mean for yourself? Like, how have you interpreted detachment?
Yeah. So what I've tried to do in terms of detachment, right? So I recently just got a new phone. Previously, I used to, because I love technology. I really do enjoy technology. I would get really, really excited. I would watch millions of videos. I would watch unboxing videos because I was excited for me to be able to do that, you know?
Shout out Marcus Brownlee.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I still watch tech reviews, but more to get an understanding of it, not for I wish I could have that new Mac or whatever, you know?
Like it interests you.
Yes, technology interests me and I enjoy, you know, the design and everything of it. And previously when I was going to get something new, whatever it may be, I was really excited and I would be super excited and think about it only, and it would take up most of my thought throughout the day. So let's say I'm working, but I know my phone's arriving tomorrow. I would just be thinking about the phone.
Yeah.
And that is putting too much power on that phone. So it's too much attachment to the device. And it's the same as, you know, when I get the device. So it's kind of like a good indifference where it's cool that I'm getting it. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's great. But it's not overly excited. And then if I did get it and then I dropped it and it broke, not being really, really upset.
100%.
So it's kind of like that in middle ground where it's cool. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that getting a new phone isn't cool, but if I didn't get it, let's say the shipment, I don't know, got lost, like don't be really, really upset about it. Like don't get frustrated over that because it's just a piece of technology.
100%. Which is why I actually, like, detachment is such a misunderstood thing in this world. People hear the word detachment, especially in relationships. People hear detachment and they think they're picturing someone who's like disinterested,
Cold.
cold.
Harvey Specter, when he's the most
Yeah,
emotionally detached.
100%, just aloof and in his own space. And that's why I asked you about detachment, because I actually think it's so misunderstood. But what I've realized is to be detached is almost the ticket to the most fulfilling life ever. But only when you understand that detachment is to be like fully engaged when you have something. Because it's good. I mean, to engage with life is like the point.
Yeah.
If you're interested in technology, you engage with that. If you're interested in your girlfriend, like, you engage with her. If you're interested in business, but then no part of your emotional space or well-being or like internal fulfillment is tied to the movement of that thing. Like you were saying, you're about to get a new phone, you give everything you have to it, but if it drops on the floor, your fulfillment is over here, and you just lost a phone, you just deal with it. You're not like attached. But like, why detachment is so powerful is because it kind of removes your agenda. You know, and especially in relationships, if you're not attached to someone, you don't like need anything from them.
Might be less manipulative, all of those kind of
Exactly.
things.
If you don't need anything from them, if they're in a bad mood, you just give them love. If they're in a good mood, you give them love. If they need space, you give them love. If they're like trying to be right in an argument, you just give them space for that. If you now are attached and you need them, like today I needed you to be in a good mood because that's what I felt like. Now when they're not in a good mood, because you're attached, now there's all sorts of chaos. Now you try get them into a good mood and you kind of miss the person that's sitting in front of you because you're attached. You're needing this thing to be how you want it to be. And I think it's the same for life. Like if you're detached, it's like full acceptance, but also full engagement. Like you're 100% engaged with what you're doing, but you don't need it to be a certain way for your own agenda or for your own happiness. So as life kind of changes, this is why when people, if you ever say to someone like, I'm completely detached from life, they think you're depressed. They think you're like, you know, apathetic and you're just like miserable. But what it actually means is like, I'm so engaged with life, but I'm not attached to it. I'm detached. So the way it moves, I'm in full acceptance all the time. And so now you actually like start to love life more because you don't, you know, I needed it to be like this, but this happened. Now I'm miserable, you know. And that's why detachment is such a, I think everyone should look into detachment.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, the best thing I could think of now is kind of like water, where, you know,
100%.
like water in that bottle. That water is still in the bottle, but if you shake it around, it moves around. It's fluid, you know, it goes where it is put. So it's not, you know, controlled or bound. Like it's not ice. It's not a solid. So it can be moved. You know, like Bruce Lee, or I think it was Bruce Lee, who said like, be like water.
100%.
And that's also, it's not emotional detachment or detachment from enjoyment. It's, you know, I love the studio. If it had to burn down, well, it's not the end of the world. Like, be like water. Okay, well, what does that mean? Let's go this way. Let's do this. As opposed to sitting in my room, being depressed. You know, my studio burnt down. I'm so upset. Whereas like, okay, well, it's burnt down. Let's be fluid. Let's move in a direction where we can go
100%.
from here.
There's actually, I think it was Thomas Edison. This is like a big quote that always, it's literally to do with the studio. I think he had all his inventions in like one big warehouse. And then
is that not an obstacle is the way? Have you read the book yet?
No, I'm on, I think, the introduction.
Okay, but there's that Thomas and Edison story in one of Ryan Holiday's books.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Remind me of the story because I can't remember exactly.
So he has, I think it was his life's work, because obviously back then he probably had one old-fashioned warehouse, all his inventions, and there was a day where it started all burning up. And basically, you know, you'd expect him to be suicidal, depressed, his entire life's work. And back then, you know,
it's like Elon Musk losing everything.
What you have is what you have. Elon Musk, like, you know, there's no backup, there's nothing. It's like
because also, I mean, Thomas Edison of the day was like Elon Musk now. 100%. So it's to that scale of like everything Elon's built disappearing.
All burning up. And instead of being depressed and, you know, wreaking havoc and being suicidal, he called his entire family and he said, tonight you're going to see the greatest bonfire you've ever seen. let's all have a massive family gathering and enjoy something you'll never see ever again. And it's like so powerful. That is like the truest definition of detachment. When he had what he had, he was probably so engaged with it. His inventions were probably everything. But if they burn up, he's still fine. You know, so he's detached, but by being detached, the most in line with like the truth. And in being most in line with the truth is actually living the most engaged life.
Yeah.
So detachment creates the opposite of what you'd think. But it's cool. It makes sense that it's in the obstacle is the way.
It might be. It could be in like
like
still. It might be in stillness is key. That's the other book where it's like obviously being still. So, and that's also I think the easiest route, and maybe my first, form of detachment, the correct form of detachment, because I in previous relationships had the very incorrect form where I was emotionally detached, and that's not the same thing. But my first, if I think about it, was having your identity rooted in a particular thing, like bodybuilding.
100%.
My identity was rooted in bodybuilding. So then when I stopped bodybuilding, I'm thinking like, what are people going to think of me? If I post a photo with less muscle, what are people going to say? If I do this X, Y, and Z, and that's, attached to an identity or a persona or a particular thing. And, that I would say stopping bodybuilding was my first correct detachment of, yes, maybe I'm not competing anymore, but that doesn't mean that myself as a person am any less. Yes, maybe I'll get less likes because I'm not posting photos with my shirt off, but that's superficial validation anyway. That's nothing to do with my self-worth, or at least what I should feel as a person. So I think that's maybe a good way initially to detach is, okay, I'm a business owner. Or I think the biggest, and it's the easiest way to see, if you see someone, you meet someone, be like, so tell me about yourself. And they'll say, oh, I'm an accountant. And then it's like, oh, is that who you are as a person, or is that the job that you do? Are you identifying your whole entirety of who you are as an accountant? Surely there's more to you. I don't want, if someone asks me, what do I love? Or no, let's go back to tell me about yourself. I don't ever want to, the first thing I say for it to be my job.
Yeah.
I want, if I initially explain who I am, it's my joys, my passion. Obviously, work can be a passion, of course.
100%.
But, having that identity rooted in one thing, becomes super attached to it, because you could lose your job and then your whole sense of self-worth just disappears.
Exactly. Because it's like if you take everything away, if you took your job away, if you took your friends away, your family away, if you took away where you live, a studio that you have, like, who are you? And I think, like, you're right. Like, a lot of people just default to, like, who are you? Oh, I'm an accountant. And obviously that's an aspect of your life. But you're right. I think attachment is definitely caused by that mistake of, like, I identify as that thing. So now I need to control it because it's like me. And I can't have it like not what I want it to be because it's me, and I need to control that, which causes like all sorts of problems.
How, because I've definitely struggled. For you, how is it, and as actually, I want to read a message because I did a video yesterday, I think it was yesterday, about like taking it easy and thinking like, I'm human versus, being really hard on yourself, always demanding the best. For you, how do you navigate, especially with trying to improve yourself? How do you navigate sometimes where it's like, but actually I don't feel like reading tonight. I would actually prefer to do the lazier thing and watch series, or like, do I always have to be trying to improve myself, or sometimes is it okay to maybe just watch some TV? Because I can still learn. It's not like you can't learn from TV 100%. Or get perspective or something.
So that's a great question, because that's been like, I'd say one of the biggest things I've had to navigate is that dichotomy of like the old self and this new, more engaged self. And the way I've gone through it and kind of summarize it for myself is like, I don't think it's ever wrong to watch Netflix, and I don't think it's ever right to work on your business or read your book or do some journaling or watch that podcast. I've taken out the right and wrong. You know, like all these things are the wrong thing to do and all these things are the right thing to do. Number one, the reason I've done that is because you already create this unnecessary level of guilt. The minute you do one of these wrong things, not only are you doing like a seemingly unproductive thing, but now you've added guilt, which now you also have to deal with. So now you're just causing a whole mess. So that's the first thing I did was nothing's right, nothing's wrong. But then the way I still stay motivated, and then I'll get to that now, the way I still incorporate like balance is to say these things are not right and wrong, but in terms of where I know I want to go, which of these things get me there and which do not. So now when I'm reading books, you know, working on skills, meditating, journaling, doing all like the good stuff, I'm saying to myself, like, these are the things and this is the work that's going to get me there. But then there might be a day where you also have to say, like, you know, I'm actually really tired. I'm probably going to be not that effective if I try and sit down and work another 2 hours. Let me just like watch a movie. So it's more of like a realistic, like if I'm actually being realistic, it might even be better to just wind down a little bit, watch a movie, hang with some friends, go out, whatever it is. But the trick that I've created is I'm just realistic about these are the things that get me there and these don't. So if I want to sit for a week, let's say, and watch Netflix every night, I no longer feel bad about that, but I always remind myself, if you're going to do these things, cool, it's not wrong, but you know that that's not getting you there. So as long as you know that when you do A, you're going to go A, and when you do B, you move to B, that's cool. So if you're doing A, you're just not going to like kid yourself and say like, I'm going to do all these things, but I still want to get there. And then you kind of find that balance. The biggest thing for me was it just removed the guilt. Everyone's trying to moralize, you know, like, oh, I had some crap food today, like I feel bad. It's like, if you had crap food, cool, but just know, you know, eat crap food for a week if you want, but as long as you're realistic about the fact that you're not going to lose weight, then you don't have to feel guilty about it. Just be realistic. And then when you take the guilt away, I've become more inclined to do the good things. It's like when you guilt yourself.
There's less pressure on doing the good things. So
100%.
I know personally, if I demonize something, I also want it more.
100%.
So conversely of, you know, not putting too much pressure to do the right thing helps you
100%.
do the right thing because there's less pressure. And I mean, that's a large degree why people in school who maybe his parents are forcing them to play a particular sport or do a particular degree or go and study whatever, don't enjoy it as much because they feel that pressure from their parents to do whatever that is.
100%.
And, you know, pressure removed, your thought processes, I mean, we've all seen it. If you're under pressure, obviously pressure is good at times.
You can't like see straight.
Yes.
You're not
thinking about the
things.
consequences and not just thinking about the thing.
100%. Or like the biggest thing for me was if you guilt yourself when you have donuts, but you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to eat healthy, you know, you've got this plan. It's crazy because you guilt yourself and like the actual problem is sitting here. You're just here dealing with the guilt that you've created, getting nowhere, feeling crap. And like the actual thing you're trying to solve is in a whole nother room. So you end up just being so unproductive when you guilt yourself. And the biggest thing, I'll give you like a good example. I figured out the difference between, you know, you want to eat healthy, right? That's like a big thing for everyone. I used to feel guilty if I didn't. And like you say, the power you use to fight something, it fights you back with. Like if you demonize something, it comes at you harder. And I figured out instead of demonizing things, instead of moralizing like I shouldn't be doing that or that's wrong, rather just understand things. So for me, the biggest thing was I used to demonize. I got into the habit of like demonizing unhealthy food and then praising healthy food. But like that's just a losing battle because then obviously like the cravings for crap food came at me harder and harder and harder. But then I learned the opposite, which was let me just understand rather than fight. And I contemplated and there was a day, obviously it led up to this day, but there was like a tipping point where I saw, wait a minute, if I eat healthy, it's going to actually help me get over there, which is where I'm trying to go. So it's no longer like unhealthy food is bad and healthy food is right, and that's wrong. It's like, wait, I'm trying to go there, and I've just seen that this healthy food, in terms of energy and mental clarity, is going to get me there. So now all the right and wrong flies out the window, and I just understood something. Like, oh, this is actually going to help me greatly. Suddenly the craving for unhealthy food went away, and the craving for healthy food was just like there without any willpower needed to like force myself. So back to your question, for me, the whole, working on yourself a lot, which is very time consuming and, like comes at a large cost of the pleasures of life when you're doing the work. For me, it's just like a dance. It's just like, make sure you're doing the work. If you're trying to go where the work takes you, don't kid yourself. If you're not doing the work, don't expect those results. So if you really have a big vision and you're trying to head somewhere, make sure you're doing a lot of the work, whatever that is for the thing you're trying to chase. But also, no one's perfect, and it's not wrong to take a break from that. But as long as in your mind you're realistic and you say, I'm taking a break from the work, so as long as I don't expect to be moving, that's fine. I'm going to kind of step off the road for a while, chill out. But I'm not kidding myself saying like I'm still heading towards. I think we live in a world where people want like A, but they're doing B, thinking they're going to get to A. And they're saying B is wrong, A is right. I'm trying to get to A, but I'm doing B. And like I said earlier, the simplest way that's caused the most like productivity for me is I'm trying to head to A and I'm not trying to head to B, whatever that is. Here are the things in A that will get me to A. Here are the things in B that will take me to B. I can do some of A and some of B, but as long as I know these things take me there and these things take me there. And then you kind of balance it out and you say, I don't feel like only going there today. Let me do a little bit of this stuff. And then
and I think
create
also
the balance for yourself.
Yeah, for efficiency's sake, you want to get to A. 80% is doing the A tasks. And maybe 20% of doing the B will help you progress more in the A.
100%.
It's the B might be, I don't feel like going to gym today. But maybe not going to gym will then help you the following day to be able to go and train more at a difficult higher level. Whereas if you just did the A, you're constantly eating healthy, you could reach a point of burnout and then you regress completely and then you have a whole week of doing B. Whereas
100%.
Implementing a little bit of the B every now and then can help you do more of the A and then not fall off.
100%. Like it's backwards. Sometimes it's like counterintuitive to take like the pedal or like, take your foot off the gas. Often like gives you a little bit of rest, which actually ends up giving you more energy to then like work less on those things, but the energy you bring to it is so much stronger.
Like I know if I do, let's say watching Netflix is the B. I know if I've worked for 12 hours and, I woke up early, I was working the whole day and now it's the evening. Just at 6 o'clock, Jesse, if you want to get to A, if you want to be the next Alex or Mosey, you can't watch Netflix. But it's like,
but that's
going to that B,
exactly it.
Going to that B and doing the Netflix can then help me wake up the next morning and do another 12 hours of work. Whereas if I try push an extra 2 hours of work, then the next morning I wake up and then I hate work and then I have completely negative aspect or negative conceptualization around the concept of just trying to progress that I do then the whole day of B.
100%. But what you said is like I keep saying, like everyone, it's like these things are wrong, these are right. It's just a mess. That's just guilt. That's just chaos. But it's like if you don't want to be the next Alex Hormozy, then you can probably watch Netflix every weekend. That's cool. You're not wrong for doing that if you're not trying to be like Alex Hormozy.
Yeah.
But then you get a guy who's saying, no, like I really want to be that influential. I want to have that much cash. I want to have that character that guy has. Then it's like, well, you're still not wrong for watching Netflix, but like you need to understand if you want to get there, this is probably not. It's just like a realistic attitude. It's no like there's no guilt.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be the next Chris Williamson and have like the Modern Wisdom podcast, you're not wrong now for watching Netflix. But then you got to say to yourself, if I want to have that much influence and build something as big as that, Netflix is just not a good idea. I'm just like moving in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But you're not wrong for that. You don't need to feel guilty. And ironically, when you start to see through these things and you actually start to see, oh, wait, Netflix is not bad, but it's not the right piece to get there, then the guilt goes away and you actually start wanting to do the hard work. And your identity starts changing into someone who doesn't have to demonize crap food. You just no longer crave it because you've seen through the fact that it's going to take you away from a meaningful vision.
Yeah.
That like means something to you, and you kind of quiet your mind and you see what takes you there, what doesn't, and then you know what I'm saying. I'm sure you've had these big identity shifts. Like running for you is probably not hard work. I'm sure when you run very far, it is.
Some days just getting out there on the road is tough, bro. I promise.
But for you, it's like it's not
what it was when I started.
Prefer
it's a lot
to
easier.
run
Yeah.
than wake up on a Saturday and just shove chocolate into your mouth and watch a movie as you wake up.
Yeah.
So
It
you're
would
not
be
forcing yourself.
Yeah,
You've changed.
100%.
You've seen like the vision you want. Running is conducive to that in all the ways. I actually want to go run. So like there's no more guilt and wrong or right. And there'll be days you've run so much that you're like, I actually just need to sit and chill. And that's the biggest thing I've found is like, as long as you're forcing, I shouldn't do that and I should do that, you've got to have that like identity shift. And that book I'm reading, he has another book which speaks about like, and you mentioned it earlier.
You want to mention the name of the book for people, maybe if they're even watching to this point?
Yeah, if you read, it's called Awareness by Anthony DeMello. You can get it off Takealot. I don't think often bookstores don't have a few of these like smaller books. But the biggest lesson I learned from that, which has changed everything, is, and you actually mentioned it, the amount of power you use to fight something, it will just fight you back. The minute you demonize donuts, all you want is donuts. And he said, put that all aside. You just need to start observing these things and see through them and understand them. And the day you understand that donuts are holding you back from the things you're actually trying to do, you'll drop them immediately. As long as you still are seeing the value in something, you're going to have to like force yourself to stop. And that's what I'm saying. Like with running, you've seen the value, you've seen through it, you've felt the benefits, you've seen that it's like getting you closer to something. You no longer have to use willpower to choose that path. And you no longer have to use willpower to, not wake up and like watch movies or just chill.
It's almost got to the point where it would almost be impossible for me. Obviously, I own my own business, so it would be possible as opposed to someone that has to go into the office. But it would be impossible for me to wake up on a Monday morning and decide to cancel all of my clients and decide to just watch TV all day. Like I would physically not be able to will myself to do that. And
100%.
That's where it's come to a point where on a Saturday, there is nothing I would rather do because I love it, enjoy it so much, and I know it's getting me to where I want to be, is go for a long run. I would much prefer, sometimes obviously if I'm overtired, maybe I'd prefer not to and just relax.
And that's when, like you said,
Might need it and it could help you more.
When doing the seemingly what the world calls like the lazy thing is actually like good. You'd be doing yourself worse to now force yourself to go run.
Yeah. But also understanding the route to get to the point you want to get to is very different for very different people.
100%.
If we look at Alex Hormozy, he also always talks about discard your morning routines, just wake up and work. Whereas there's other people be like, no, get your sunlight, have your coffee, do your journaling, do your meditation. And, some people thrive better doing that way. Some people thrive better just waking up, having a coffee and working. Some people thrive better sleeping later and they can function better in the evening. So there's like no one correct way. I mean, if you look at Mr. Beast, I saw an interview he did where he says he works for like 24/7 for months straight. And then he reaches a point of burnout and then he relaxes for like a few weeks and then he gets back on it. For him, that's great. For me, I can't do that. I enjoy, and the way I like to do my life is a bit more balanced than that. If I had goals of trying to be the next Mr. Beast, I still wouldn't try to do it the exact same way as him.
100%.
Because I'm not wired like that. I'm wired in a different way. So I think also the right thing might not be the actual right thing for you. Those 8 tasks that Alex Hormozy is doing. yeah, I'm sure a large portion of them are the correct A tasks for you, but there are other aspects of it that might not be. You know, watching Netflix, watching a movie, watching a series could be an A task. And I think that's also maybe we need to distinguish is that watching Netflix maybe isn't a B task. There's no A and B. Maybe it's just the tasks.
100%.
The tasks that are going to get me there. Because I think the moment we also make it an A and a B, then we're already making one good and one bad. And
like
then we're already
without the words,
demonizing.
100%.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of just there's tasks, and sometimes a less productive task, a seemingly less productive, well, in isolation, it is a less productive task, maybe watching Netflix.
100%. Depending on what you're trying to be productive.
In the whole, it could be productive.
Yeah. I like what you said there. Rather just, it creates like a very in the moment, conscious, spontaneous assessment. Rather than like you say, like A and B already still creates this like, you know, these guys and then that stuff. It's like if you're sitting there on a Friday night in the moment, no good, no bad, and you're saying, how do I feel right now? I'm actually really exhausted.
But it's also tough to trust.
The task becomes, let me watch a movie. No A and B, but 100%.
To also trust to trust your thoughts and to trust.
Am I copping out?
Am I copping out? Am I actually tired? Am I overworked? And I think that's also where it's so tough. It's so
balance
tough to truly know.
It's such a difficult thing to assess.
Yeah.
I think an important thing on balance, something I learned recently, which I'd never really thought of, is balance is also a dynamic thing as well. Where I think a lot of people think balance is taking the two sides and then cutting it down the middle and saying like half and half. But I think between the two sides of whatever you're looking at, healthy eating, unhealthy eating, balance actually changes depending on like life. So sometimes it's actually better to do 90% of this side and only 10% of this side. And sometimes it's best to do 75%. It's never like half the weekend is good, half the weekend is bad. It's like maybe for 8 months you had to use every weekend to grind on a project, but then the balance is the last 4 months of the year, your weekends were a little bit more. Maybe other times it's 2 months on, 2 months off. For some people, it's probably Saturday and Sunday. And I think for different people and the same people, balance is like it changes, you know?
And also your perception of balance at least also changes because I know I was willing to sacrifice certain, like when I was last year, I worked every day up until like, well, not the whole year, but I worked to a large portion of the time till like 8 p.m. I would work here on a Friday and a Saturday and a Sunday. But because I went through that, I was able now to allow myself the balance of on the weekend, I employ someone now. Yeah. So he can be on the weekend, so I can have a bit more balance. But it needed to be a bit unbalanced initially to get it to a point that I wanted to. Yeah, like if you are wanting to run a marathon, you know, and you want to run a sub 3, there needs to be a level of imbalance to be able to achieve that goal, you know. And I think that's also, you just need to look at how bad do I want it, you know. Am I willing to sacrifice friendships? Am I willing to sacrifice X, Y, and Z? If you aren't, understand that you aren't, and then don't. But if you aren't willing to sacrifice it and then do sacrifice it and then upset with the people or whatever and make a certain choice, and then those things that you sacrificed, you're upset about having lost them, then it's on you as well. So I think it's also kind of just realizing, you know, what exactly do I want? Am I willing to sacrifice these things? If I'm not, then don't. You know, it's the same as someone that, as you mentioned, let's say to talk about diet, they want to have a great body. Very obviously subjective. They want to have a great body, but they aren't willing to do the work. They can't be upset that they don't have the body because they haven't done the work.
100%.
So I think it's a difficult balance of also like analyzing, like, what do I actually want?
Bro, that's like, it's crazy because it sounds so obvious, but that's the very thing. You actually, so many people, kind of all of us, we haven't thought long enough about like the most fundamental question, which is like, what do I want? And you're right, like that self-awareness of what you want allows you to make those decisions in like your own way. And different people will be able to say like, if I want to get there, I have to sacrifice friendship. But because I know what I want, because I sat for hundreds of hours thinking about it, I know that friendship is something that I really want. And then you're able to say, cool, then I can't do that as much as I wanted to. So I think that's like the key, is to be self-aware enough to know, firstly, to get where you want to go, what do I need to do more of and sacrifice more of? And then you'll know like, okay, but I don't want to sacrifice that, because not as a cop-out, just as like that thing is actually really meaningful.
But yeah,
So then
I agree with that.
You can actually figure out, and again, that'll change. Maybe you have to sacrifice something temporarily, and you can see that you're not giving it up forever. You can bring it back when it's more appropriate, and then, but I think what you want is like, you have to know what you want. I think a lot of people don't. So now they're sacrificing things that they actually wanted for something they thought they wanted. And that's where sacrifice takes on quite a negative nature.
Also, it's so tough because, like, let's say Friday night, I could do some more work, but I don't want to. So then I'm thinking, okay, well, Jesse, you don't really want to be someone that works constantly. I don't actually have the dream of being like Alex, or like, I don't need that much money. Like, I'm not that driven to try be that successful, that well known. But then I think, is this just you copping out so that you can relax? Or is this, like, what are your motives behind justifying this? Like, let's look at diet as well. I will be eating clean, and then maybe I'll be out at a restaurant. Let's say I really feel like something nice. Then I'll think, Jesse, are you trying to be lean for other people? Then have the pizza. If your motivation is to try to look a certain way for other people. But then I'm thinking, is that my just trying to justify having the pizza? It's like there's also so much thought where it's like, am I copping out, or am I actually doing this because of how I want? Like, there's so much that you could actually analyze.
So I want to get your opinion on this. If in the case you're there Friday night, and in your head you're saying like, I really want to build a business. So I know probably Friday night, the work day is done. I need to put in 2-3 more hours. But then that other side of you is like, maybe I'm a little bit tired. Like, I think I want to watch a movie. I would argue that you don't actually want to build a business in that moment. You want to just chill.
You want to relax more than you want to build the business. Otherwise, you would just be building the business.
So like, what is your opinion on the fact that like what you end up doing, and this can be looked at like over time, or it can be looked at based on small decisions, like moment to moment decisions. The thing you end up doing is actually the thing that you want. If it wasn't, you would have done the other thing. Because I think I was watching this video once, and this guy said like, if you truly wanted something, like we all say we want it, he's saying if in reality you deep down you actually wanted it, you would do exactly what you would do, the things to get you there. If you're not, it's because you don't truly actually want it. Like in the moment where you want to build your business or watch Netflix, if you end up watching Netflix, that's the thing you actually wanted more. Hence why you did it. So it's like, I've questioned a lot of times, like, I kind of copped out. Maybe I did the thing that I didn't originally want to do. And then I say to myself, like, you didn't actually want that thing. You wanted this because you chose this. And then you start to actually question, like, why do we want the things we want? Like, do I actually want to build a business, or am I looking for something after that? For example, it's like as simple as like, or as complex as, I really want to be lean, right? Just take your average person. I really want to be super lean. So I really want, like, I must eat clean food. And the moment it comes to choose the healthy food over the non-healthy food, I end up choosing the pizza. And it's like, what did they actually want? Do they really want to be lean, or do they actually want to like just feel good? And that's why they chose the pizza, because actually what they wanted was to feel good. And it's just the sort of analysis that like fascinates me, to say like, why did they actually want to be lean in the first place? Probably to feel good. That's what they actually want. So when it comes to choose healthy food or unhealthy food, because what they actually want through being lean is to feel good, right now the pizza makes me feel good. So like, it also, that sort of analysis has helped me get to like the behind the scenes of what I actually want from the things that I want. And then you can also sometimes find like shortcuts to those things without going through other means to get there, if that makes
Yeah, I think
makes
it's also, I want to feel good. Okay, a pizza in this moment will make me feel good, but then maybe tomorrow I won't feel good. So what can I do? Like building a business, you can feel good, or building a good body, you can feel good in a while. So maybe how can I circumvent that feeling quicker without the fallout almost? So like maybe like something like reading. You can feel good now about reading, or maybe it's a little bit more difficult than watching Netflix, but you can like the moment you're reading, you start to feel better, and then tomorrow there's not going to be any fallout. Whereas potentially there could be fallout from watching Netflix, because then maybe you've like, okay, obviously I fall asleep reading or watching TV, but you potentially could stay. I'll find myself, if I ever stay up later, it's not because I'm reading. I normally, reading makes me a lot more tired than Netflix does, because you actually,
it's like burning.
yeah, and you're using your
calories.
eyes, and like, I don't know, I just feel like I've definitely
100%.
fallen asleep. Like I love falling asleep having to reading. I do sometimes the next morning have to go back and like reread a little bit, because you kind of forget those last few pages before you fall asleep.
You forgot the point at which you were awake reading.
Yes,
and, like,
yeah.
It's like a blur.
But, if you can do the things that make you feel good now, and those things will then also lead to a greater feeling of feeling good, as opposed to the instant gratification of a pizza, but then there's the fallout. So your main motive behind your decisions is, okay, well, I want the feeling that makes me feel good. Okay, cool. What can make me feel good now without the fallout? But also
100%.
that's difficult, because most things in life that make you feel good without the fallout take time to acquire.
No, 100%. Yeah, I think it just comes back down to like what you want and why. Like if you read to relax, you might end up watching Netflix rather, because if it's ultimately what you want is to relax, you might just choose like the easy,
Because you can switch off
easier
a
way
bit more
to
and be a
get that.
bit, yeah,
Like why put in effort to relax when I can just
relax.
relax and relax?
Yeah.
But if you're reading to build knowledge, you're gonna have to read. You can't get that any other way. If
Maybe
that's
watch a
truly what you want,
documentary, but still reading, your attainment of the knowledge is going to be higher.
100%. So it's just like, it's interesting to question, like, what is it that you, like, we all say we want this, but like, do we actually want that? Because I think another big thing is wanting something includes the work it takes to get there. Like wanting to own a business includes wanting everything it takes to get there. People are just thinking of like, I want the end goal, not realizing that like what you want has to include everything it takes to build that.
I was listening to an interview with Conor McGregor and Jake Gyllenhaal now, because they obviously had that new movie, Roadhouse, or the remake of it. And he said, because they were talking about how much money Conor has, and Conor said this, he said, when I had no money, I was training. When I had money, I was training. When I started this, I started because I love training. Well, I've got the money, I'm still doing the same thing. Yes, maybe my money allows me to do a lot of other things, but he still does the same thing. It's the training. The thing that made him rich is the doing, and that's why I love business. I don't I don't have a passion for podcast studios or a passion for business. Like I have a passion for growing something and seeing
100%.
what your work can bring about. So if this business was a massive success, it's the work that I enjoy, the day-to-day work of it, regardless of the end product. Obviously, you do want to see your hard work
That's
reach
like
fruition,
included,
but it's the work itself. The training. I love training to get the good body. I mean, most of the time there's an anticlimax when you reach the goal that you're thinking in your head that you want to achieve. And the most satisfying thing is that daily grind and that daily motion of doing what you love. And we think as people, like, that ultimate level of happiness or achievement is at the end line.
100%.
Whereas there is no end line, because the moment you get there, like the novelty wears off like in a few hours.
100%. Like, don't you, like, it's wanting a good body. Everyone sees that statement as I want to be shredded. But I think in reality, if you want a good body, it means you want to wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym. It means you want to change your diet. It means you have to want to spend 2 hours of your day lifting weights, sweating, suffering a little bit. I think everyone thinks wanting something means the thing at the end, but like you have to want every step along the way. Like if you want a good body, you have to also want all the pieces in between. You have to want to change your diet. You have to want to go to the gym. You have to want to maybe reduce your calories, whatever it is. And like, I think it's interesting because if you had to expand an end goal into all the steps and then look at someone and say, do you want this? They would be like, no. And that's what distinguishes that decision of choosing this or that.
Because if you truly wanted it, you would go through the steps.
Because it's like if you had to say to someone, do you want $1 million? They'd be like, of course. Be like, cool, but let's open up what that means. Do you want to work 80% of your weekends? Do you want to sacrifice, let's just be cliche, you want to sacrifice alcohol and consumerism? Do you want to see your friends less? Do you want all these things? And then they'll be like, no. And it's like, then you don't actually want $1 million. You think you want $1 million, but you don't actually want it, because wanting it means wanting all of these things. You don't want any of these, which means you don't actually want $1 million, which means in the moment you get given to choose the hard thing or the easy thing. You're going to choose the easy thing because you think you want it, but you don't. So you choose the thing you actually want, which is whatever you choose. And that to me was like an absolute, like, you know, an epiphany where I was like, if I want something, I have to want everything up to that point, not just the thing. So now on the flip side, if you want to like run a marathon, but you also want to get up early, you also want to change your diet, you also want to go to all those training sessions, then you actually want this thing because you want the entire body of what it is. Now when it comes to chilling on the weekend or, you know, getting up early and going and running, you'll choose the thing you actually want, which is the running. So it's just interesting. You can actually learn a lot about like what you actually want just by like seeing what you actually do.
Yeah.
What you actually do is like what you want.
And then also, let's say you want a successful business. Okay, you go through all of those steps to go to build the business. So yes, you do want the business, but then deeper, is it maybe respect that you want? Is it love? Is it appreciation? So like, is it like you, like that person that wants, I'll take $1 million and yes, I'll be willing to put in the work. What does that $1 million actually mean to you? Is it the, you know, respect that $1 million will give you? Is it the security? Like, what is it that, because as men, you know, we want to be respected more than we want to be loved. I feel as a man, like I would rather have a wife that respects me first, then loves me, as opposed to a wife that loves me, but in like a condescending way where there's no respect.
Is that love then or not?
Well, she can, I mean, I love, let's say, because like, let's say you cheat on her, right? She loses respect for you. Or you do something embarrassing, like you make a stupid decision, your business fails or whatever, like a really dumb decision where everyone will look at you and be like, bro, that was dumb. She can still love you, but she can have lost respect for you.
I see.
So, you know,
you're saying you'd rather be respected first
as opposed to loved.
For like your character,
yes,
and receive love.
Yeah. So, you know, if we look at a relationship, obviously, I mean, you need to, like you do want your partner to love you, obviously. But first, I would rather have respect of, you know, I really look up to them, you know, like that for me, I think is my biggest driving force is respect.
And you're saying like often people are doing X, Y, Z, not because of those things, but because of like that which comes after, like the respect that comes after.
Like wanting a nice car. Is it because you want a nice car? Or it's not the hard work that getting the car represents, or maybe that hard work represents diligence and those things which you want people to see. Is it, because like having a nice car to a large degree is for people to see that you have a nice car. So then it's the respect. To have a nice big house, is it to be safe? You can have a small house and be safe somewhere, you know, in a safe area. But why a big house? Is it respect? So I think there's a lot of underlying things, especially with materialism.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, I want people to see that I've got nice clothes, but why? I want people, like, is it because I want people to see myself, how I create, I'm creative, or like, you know, there's certain, definitely feelings of acceptance that are always come about through what you want.
And it's interesting. Part of that whole play life, bro, for me this is a big one, is there's like two ways that I kind of experiment to like win for myself, like win more at life. And that's like, if I feel like I'm going after something that's going to take 10 years, like if I'm going to put in 10 years of effort for this thing, best believe I must make sure that it's actually what I want and that the intentions of why I'm doing it are actually like meaningful to me. And one way I've figured out, which is cool, I feel like if people thought about this, it's actually such a cool thing to figure out, is like in the example of a guy who thinks he wants a Porsche, but what he actually wants is admiration from people. He wants to be respected. He wants attention from girls. Maybe that's like what he thinks he's going to get. It's like he's wasting his entire life if he goes and like works a job he hates because it pays a lot of money, wrecks his family relationships just to get this Porsche, to get these like few things. And I think like a cool way to play life is to do two things, which is number one, learn to get the things that you're seeking behind those things in like ways that don't take so much effort. Like if you want respect from people and you think a Porsche is going to get you that, why not just like be honest with people that you know, do good things for people? Suddenly you're getting respect from these people. Right now, maybe the whole dream of the Porsche actually just starts to fade. So it's like number one is to actually try get the qualities you're looking for behind these things just right now, and you'll realize like the fulfillment you think you're getting in 10 years can actually be found right now. Like if you want attention from, or for example, if you want people to see, well, I'll get back to that. But so it's number one is like finding those qualities now before spending 10 years doing something you hate just to get the money to get the Porsche to now. And number two, back to that thing we were speaking about, like the inner game, also learning to put in the work that makes you less reliant on those things as well. So it's not about, it's like two things. Like if you want to get a Porsche to get approval from women, right? Firstly, the first step is instead of spending all the time and effort to make all the money to buy a Porsche to get that approval, which probably isn't going to happen like the way you think it's going to happen, why not just go to a bar and be a genuine guy? Suddenly like women are vibing with you and you get it within a week. Suddenly you're like, oh, I don't actually need a Porsche. So that's like one trick I found, which is really cool. And then number two is also to not necessarily need that thing in the first place, whether it's like at the bar or getting a Porsche, is like removing that part of you that needs approval from women in the first place. Now that can be approval from people, that can be respect, that can be needing people to like you. But that to me has changed the game, and it frees up all of this like stuff and you feel like free. Because suddenly like we'll just go back to the example. I want people to like me more. So I'm going to go get a Porsche. If I'm rich and I have a Porsche, people will like me. Now, the one part is like spending all of that time doing that, which is, I feel like those people are not free. They're trapped by this necessity to get something, and they'll often sacrifice like the job they actually want to do because that's not going to get me the Porsche. So it comes at a whole bunch of like sacrifice and unhappiness. Let me rather do two things. Let me try find the quality I'm looking for after having the Porsche, which is like, I want people to like me more. Hell, I can just like maybe become more funny and like just treat people better, and I get it like immediately. Now I'm free because that whole journey of getting a Porsche is now gone. I'm not trapped by it because I got the thing right now. Now I can go off and do the thing I actually want to do. And the other trick is like, let me also remove the part of me that even needs to be liked in the first place. And like those two things free you up so much. Suddenly like you choose the things you actually want to do. You be the way you actually want to be. Because it's that whole thing we're talking about, like finding what's behind all these major things we go after. And what I've realized is a lot of things I've wanted, I didn't actually have to go on that massive sort of like inauthentic journey to get that quality. I realized what was behind it, and I was like, cool, I can actually just get that now.
I think it's the materialistic social media world of, okay, I want to be respected. Okay, cool. So that means I need to have a lot of money. Whereas no, you can be respected by being charitable, by being, loving and caring. You can be respected by being an honest person. Like, you get that respect. It doesn't have to be the materialistic version, or
100%.
I want people to admire me. Okay, so that means I have to have a great body. I have to put out constant content that is, admirable. No, you can be admirable by all those other things of being honest and charitable and like being loving and caring. So this worldly perception, well, we chase what's the world standards are to achieve, to feel those certain things that, obviously love,
100%.
care, all of that. Bro, that was a great way to close off. I want to thank you for coming through. I think that's like an hour and 20. So that was a great one.
No, good. Thanks for having me, bro.
Of course, bro.
It's been cool.
It's been awesome.
It's been awesome.
And thanks for
Cheers.
watching, guys. Cheers. Nice, bro.
Bro, what I did want to say, which is crazy, is like...
Do you want to say it now?
Eh?
Do you want to say it in there?
What, inside here?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's still rolling.
Yeah,
No, I'll keep
it's
it
still
in.
recording.
It's just a cool point. Is like, I find the biggest life hack is like, if I want to be admired by people, and I've actually like done this in my own life, and that's why like it's like completely changed the way I view a lot of things. Is like that whole game of I need admiration from people. Think about how much effort we put in to get this thing, and we give up our authentic selves and we do things we don't want to do because we're like, pushing to get this so-called admiration, as one example. And it just so happened in my life, unplanned, the types of things I was doing, reading a lot of books, spending a lot of time by myself, learning to love myself and learn about like, who am I, what's authentic to me. That whole need for admiration disappeared. And I was like, oh, like the game wasn't to do the things to get it. It was to just remove it.
And then you got
And I'm
more in the
free.
process though. You would have got more admiration in the process.
Ironically, you end up you forget about it, and then all of that comes.
But you would, because you care less about what people think, people can be like, yo, Steve doesn't care about what people think. That's admirable. Look at all
But
the
I'm there
self-worth.
not needing it.
Yeah,
though.
you're not
So I
needing
don't-
it.
I'm like,
but
all
then-
my energy is freed up to just live my own life. And like, you just remove it and you're like, oh, like I didn't need to even do it.
But that's also putting the pressure on the thing. And then, if you think about anything in life, in psycho-cybernetics, I was reading, they were talking about like the smokers and addicts. The less pressure they put on it, the easier it was for them to overcome the addiction. Well, not easier, because easier makes it sound like easy, but the less difficult, I guess, it was for them to overcome the addiction. And I think it's the same as if you're constantly looking for respect, it's going to come less. If you're constantly looking for love, it's going to come less. If you want love, just love. If you want to be respected, don't focus on trying to be respected. Just respect everyone else and, not actively look for it. My most ideas come to me while I'm not looking for those ideas. Obviously
100%.
you do thought-provoking videos on Instagram as well. And it's while I'm running, not thinking about what video can I put out. Those ideas then come to me because I'm not actively putting pressure on, okay, think of an idea.
You just create space, and the force behind everything just like brings you, like you do the work and then you just create the space, and then the results of the work, you get insights, you get ideas. It's crazy. There's so much. And this is why I like, if I could have one impact on this world, it would be to get people to read, because like there's so much to think about where you start getting like your mind blown, where you're like, the whole way I've been seeing this, the way that life works. I read a book, I contemplated it, and I looked for that stuff, and I realized the entire way that I saw this was completely wrong. And it's like, that's why I wish people read more books, because like these understandings and seeing life for what it actually is, and almost like, you're going to use like the word hacking life. Like instead of spending 10 years getting that Porsche, all I had to do was spend 2 months by myself in my room, learning to love myself. And now this need for admiration went away. Cool. Now I don't have to spend 10 years getting a Porsche. It was just 2 months like in a room with like, and it's like seeing like how life actually works and learning and, learning to like hack life is why like reading is, I'm sure you find it as well.
And also
Reading
you
is
can,
just
I mean, where else can
crazy.
you have a conversation with Marcus Aurelius?
Mm.
You know, some TV documentary about him is some reenactment that's made today. Obviously translations and all of that kind of stuff, maybe it gets a little bit lost in translation, or his actual point gets a bit lost. But I mean, where else can you have a conversation with these people that were born so many years ago, other than you can read books about them, or you can read books that they might have written, you know?
100%.
So those kind of things, to be able to have an understanding of Hitler's thought process, have an understanding of, you know, this philosopher, that philosopher, no matter how old they are, to be able to just pick up a book and have a conversation with them almost. That's what's cool about books for me.
100%. And like those 300 pages, some man or woman spent 20 years of their life figuring out all of this whilst you were like chilling. And they bring you 20 years or 10 years of like, this is how it is for this topic. And now you can sit and learn, read, and see like these things are actually true. And just like, I think the term is like standing on the shoulders of giants. Like they do all the work and then you get given it in 300 pages, which is like, that's why like these days, the ability to grow and change and learn and understand life is right there. Like one book, if you took one book and spent a year with it, provided it was like a valuable book, and you spent a year just unpacking every lesson in that book, day after day after day, like one book could transform your entire life.
And that's why
for
you
the rest of your life.
And you can reread books many times. I mean, what's
And you
that?
should reread books.
Yeah. What's that quote is, no man ever steps in the same river twice, because the river is different and the man is different. I mean, every time you read a book, your framework might be different, your mental space might be different, your understanding could be better or worse or whatever. So every time it's
things
different.
you didn't see before. 100%. Like, last thing I'll say, because we're actually speaking about it, that concept of giving up a habit, you fight this habit and you demonize it, but then like, you know, it turns out that this thing fights you back twice as hard. That's how I used to live my life from like my early 20s when I got interested in, you know, these are the habits I want to remove. Let me demonize all of them and like fight them with everything I have. And, you know, year after year after year, I would end up in the exact same place, still trying to fight this thing. It took one book that explained it really well for me to realize, oh, wait, I've actually just been going about this completely wrong. Let me trust this book. Let me experiment and see like if what this person is saying is true. Took those few ideas from, I think it wasn't even the whole book. It was like one chapter that really spoke about not using willpower, rather use understanding and like observe this thing. One idea from one book, tried it, and then completely revolutionized my ability to pick a habit I don't like and use this new process to remove it from my life. And I was like, that's one idea from one chapter of one book. That's crazy. Like,
what else is out there?
How many books, how many ideas, you know, and you don't even have to do a lot. It's just like one new idea every week. And maybe you see the same ideas for a few weeks and you do that for like 20 years. That's like what excites me about like this work is like what would come out of new ideas for 20 years that I'm actually like applying to life. In the case that I'm not just intellectualizing and thinking about it, I'm actually like bringing it into life and actually changing. It's kind of exciting to think like, it's almost like you can't imagine what comes out of that.
And it's also because one little thing that you read can be interpreted so many different ways that if you read something like, yo, this is quite thought-provoking, there are a multitude of instances in your day that you would be able to apply that in a particular way, in a different way of understanding. Like you might read something and apply it differently and it benefits you. I might read something, read the exact same thing, but apply it differently, rationalize it slightly differently or whatever, but still gain insight from it. And then tomorrow, that same thing could be applied slightly differently. And that's what's, you know, like we mentioned earlier saying, you know, reading meditations is almost every single time I pick up that book, I can just read a few paragraphs. And then later in the day, something can happen and it'll make me think of that. Like, oh, actually, yeah, I can implement that here. Yeah. So, and you can read something about, you know, we spoke about the river thing. No man steps in the same river twice, that can be applied in so many different ways. So just knowing that and then thinking about it, rationalizing it, and then implementing it however you see fit for growth.
100%, bro. Like life, you have to be so attuned moment to moment. Like you can't read one idea and it carries the same weight in every day. The same things mean different things, which is cool. Like that's like, it excites me to think like I have to be spontaneously in the moment, engaged with the same people. The same people are different in different moments. The same ideas and books are different in different moments. And that's like, for me, like play life, bro, is like that moment to moment engagement with life in like a way that's not like boring. It actually like makes life very open-ended and curious, and like you realize like how much can come out of that moment to moment engagement, like when you really put that effort in. And again, different things for different people. It doesn't have to be books, but just like being with life moment to moment to moment and adapting and like seeing what's in front of you and understanding it. So much comes out of that like when you start the process, you could never have imagined. That's happened to me so much. That's like one thing, if I could say anything on a podcast, would be if you go down the seemingly boring route of reading books and meditating and challenging yourself and learning to master your emotions and all these like seemingly difficult things, what you think is going to come out of that, even if you think it's really good, it's going to be like 100 times greater. And that's what keeps me doing the work every single day, every single week, is like where this is heading is so much bigger than I can imagine right now. Even if what I'm imagining is huge, I've learned from like history that it's going to be so much bigger. And like,
because I think it's exponential, and you can't do the exponential improvement math in your head
100%.
Because like this day's growth could be 2x, and then the next time is this to the power of that. Like every day is completely
exponentially.
Because it's like if you have to simplify it, would maybe be like a domino effect, where it's you do this and then it improves that, and then that improves that, and that improves that, and that improves that, and like then there's constant change. But to see the end product, I mean, it's impossible.
Because it's the way I realized this was like the mind I'm using now to imagine where all this work's going to take me. I'm using this mind to imagine where it's going to take me. But in 2 years' time, once I've done a whole bunch more work, my mind's going to be like this. And that much bigger mind and being is going to create something even bigger.
Yeah.
But the things that I use with this mind to grow can't be seen by a mind this small. So the things I'm imagining, like I'm not aware of, that quote of like you can't be aware of something that's outside your awareness. So it's like you're using a small mind to try imagine, but as your mind grows, the things you're going to be able to become conscious of and develop are going to be like outside this mind. So it's like almost pointless to think about it, but it's like the means to get excited and say like what's coming is outside of what I can imagine.
Yeah, I think the best way to understand that growth is to look back.
100%.
So to look back now and be like, I felt like I was an unconscious ape like 5 years ago. Like I was just this chimpanzee programmed to do these things.
Yeah.
Like now look where I am now, and that's the growth. Like I felt like I wasn't really alive and I wasn't conscious of life. 100%. Now look where I am now. Okay, imagine 10 years and then, so just...
Great way to put it. You like look at the small time you've come and you kind of apply that same. Because I remember when I used to read about what it meant to develop myself or to gain emotional mastery or to like expand my consciousness slightly. I remember back, like I had this idea. I was like, sounds pretty good. Like I'll trust this. But now like being in the space where I am now compared to where I was, I'm like, it's nothing like it's so much better. Emotional mastery sounds like a pipe dream. It's like, it's cool to have like your emotions like in check and you can actually manage them. But like when you actually get that done and you realize how powerful it is to have like emotional mastery and how you can apply that to relationships, business, changing habits, having fun, you realize like what you think it's going to be is like so much smaller than what it actually means to get that growth. which is
And it's almost
super
just
cool. It's exciting.
control.
Mm.
It's basically just control, because someone does something that previously might have upset you, be like, okay, well, I have the capability to handle those emotions now, and we can put that aside because you can analyze it better. Okay, I lost this client. Previously, I would have reacted this way. Okay, well, I don't have to react like that. And those small bits might occur. Like, it's impossible to have complete control 100% of emotion. Like, it's impossible.
100%.
Like, your girlfriend cheats on you. It's not instant that you're going to have control of your anger or
100%.
whatever. But that's also what playing life is that constant growth and that constant maneuvering around and trying to just improve.
And an allowance of things. Like you say, you can't just turn off your emotions. You can't like control, like, no, anger is going to come up, but you can control that you allow it into the space. You don't let it make you do anything stupid. You even don't resist it to the point where it doesn't even make you suffer. It's just what it is. Like, you're just feeling angry, but it's not like suffering. That's a big thing I realized recently with emotions. The only suffering that you experience with negative emotions is not actually the negative emotion. It's only your resistance to that negative emotion. And like, I know that sounds like cool, but like, when you realize what that actually means, it's like huge. Like, every time you felt sad, it was never the sadness that made you feel, that made you suffer. It was obviously the sadness that made you feel sad, but the suffering that, you know, like, people don't want to feel sad. It's like suffering. That's not actually the sadness. That's only your resistance to the sadness. Like, I don't want to feel sad today.
Because there's nothing wrong with feeling sad if you look at it and be like, okay, well, my dog died. I'm sad. Like, that's okay. Feel the sadness, you know. Okay,
100%.
that taxi driver cut me off. Feel your anger, but then don't allow it to continue past its allowance, you know. Like,
100%.
get angry. That's frustrating. Okay, cool. JC, it's not that serious. Get over it now. And then move on.
Because the emotions of hurt don't actually hurt you. Like, they just feel that way, you know? Like, I actually tried it the other day. I was feeling overwhelmed, stressed. Work was hectic. I was feeling a little bit like, not depressed, but I was just like under it. And I noticed, like, the only reason I'm suffering right now because of this is because I didn't want to feel like this today. The minute I like resigned to it, not in a way where I said, cool,
You gave in or gave up.
I'm just going to feel depressed. Life
Yeah,
sucks. Like, you know, I'm a victim. It was more just like, if depression is the emotion within me today, I'm going to just feel it as much as I can. Suddenly I was still in a depressive mood, but I wasn't suffering. It didn't feel like, it wasn't uncomfortable. It was just depression, like depressive. It's hard to explain, you know, like,
Yeah, no,
until
but I understand.
until a person like for people who are listening, until you've like seen this, because it sounds like if you're depressed, but how can you not suffer? But those are like two different things. So I don't know what the major points I was making. Oh, it was like just allowing life. Like, that's like the biggest thing. Emotions teach you to, like, if life happens, you just give it the space. You can learn so much.
Awesome, bro. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jess. Good chat.
Sweet.
If we don't stop now, we'll chat forever.